Hello. Today we will explore a shocking case that shook Germany. A story of maternal love, revenge, and endless controversies. It's about a mother who fired 8 gunshots, plunging herself into a whirlwind of tragedy. Everything will be revealed shortly. This mother, right in the courtroom where the man who killed her daughter was being tried, pulled out a gun and fired 8 fateful shots. 8 deafening blasts echoed through the silent courtroom, carrying her unbearable pain and long-suppressed rage. Those 8 shots avenged her daughter, but they also thrust her into a complex legal storm. Some viewed her actions as justified, a life for a life, a mother doing everything to seek justice for her child. Others condemned her impulsive act, accusing her of disregarding the law and taking justice into her own hands. The incident sparked heated debates across Germany and even the world. What drove this mother to throw caution to the wind and personally punish the culprit? What unbearable injustice lay behind her reckless decision? Though this story took place over 40 years ago in 1980, it remains one of Germany's most shocking and widely discussed cases to this day. Let's rewind to 1980 and uncover the details step by step to better understand the tragedy that unfolded. The story begins in Lübeck, a picturesque historic city in northern Germany, just 60 kilometers from Hamburg. Known for its well-preserved medieval architecture, Lübeck attracts tourists from around the world, especially from Nordic countries. Its blend of ancient charm and modernity creates an irresistible allure. The central figure of this story is Marianne Bachmeier, born in June 1950 in Saarland, a state in Germany. Her parents were both survivors of World War II. Notably, her father had served in the Waffen-SS, the armed wing of the Nazi Party's SS, initially Hitler's personal guard, which later grew into a formidable and notoriously brutal military force during the war. The horrors of the war left deep psychological scars on her father. He turned to alcohol, became violent, and frequently lashed out at home. One can only imagine how grim Marianne's family life must have been. Growing up in such a troubled environment, Marianne developed a strong, passionate personality. This wasn't inherently negative, but it clashed sharply with her parents' traditional, conservative values. Tensions with her parents escalated until her father abandoned the family. For a time, Marianne and her mother enjoyed a peaceful, happy life. But that happiness was short-lived. Her mother remarried, and her stepfather was even worse than her biological father. Cold and indifferent toward Marianne, he was also abusive to the family. It was as if Marianne had escaped one nightmare, only to fall into another. Tragically, her mother blamed Marianne's rebelliousness and lack of understanding for the family's conflicts, offering her no support or protection. Raised in such a toxic environment, Marianne became a troubled child. In 1966, at just 16 years old, she experienced her first pregnancy while still in school. Unable to care for the baby, she gave her daughter up for adoption shortly after birth. 2 years later, at 18, she became pregnant again. This time, she planned to raise the child with her boyfriend, but tragedy struck. Just before the baby was born, she was assaulted at a nightclub. When her boyfriend learned of the incident, he left her. Still a high school student, Marianne knew she couldn't raise the child alone, so her second daughter was also given up for adoption. After graduating high school, with her striking beauty, Marianne found work as a waitress at a bar called Passat in Lübeck. She later began a relationship with the bar's manager. In 1972, at age 22, she became pregnant for the 3rd time. Though her financial situation was far from stable and she wasn't married, Marianne was haunted by the guilt of giving up her first 2 daughters. This time, she resolved to raise the child herself. On November 14, 1972, her 3rd daughter, Anna Bachmeier, was born. Determined to devote all her love to Anna, Marianne even underwent sterilization, declaring that Anna would be her only child. From then on, the life of this single mother revolved solely around her little girl. Marianne was truly dedicated to Anna, caring for her meticulously. But as time passed, the challenges of single parenthood emerged. Devoting herself entirely to Anna left Marianne no time to work and earn money. Her savings dwindled, and she struggled to make ends meet. With no other options, she began bringing Anna with her to the bar where she worked. Little Anna spent her days in the chaotic, noisy environment of the bar. Fortunately, Anna was a sweet, obedient child, adored by the bar staff and neighbors. People grew accustomed to seeing the charming little girl, and everyone, from co-workers to locals, looked after her. However, this wasn't a sustainable solution. The bar operated at night and rested during the day, so Anna lived on a schedule of sleeping by day and staying awake at night, hardly ideal for a child's development. Moreover, the bar's complex environment, with all sorts of people coming and going, posed risks of encountering unsavory characters. As a mother, Marianne naturally worried about this, but she felt trapped. By then, she was a co-owner of the bar and couldn't abandon the business. She needed the income to support Anna. Torn between her responsibilities, Marianne considered finding a trustworthy family to entrust Anna to, but she couldn't bear to part with her youngest daughter and hesitated to make a decision. Time flew by, and by 1980, Anna was 7 years old and utterly adorable. She had settled into a relatively normal routine, attending school during the day with her peers. On April 5th of that year, a small argument broke out between Anna and Marianne, typical childish sulking. The next morning, still upset, Anna left the house. Instead of going to school, she wandered off to find friends to play with. But her friends were all at school, so she ended up roaming the streets alone. Marianne, waking up later, assumed Anna had gone to school and didn't think much of it. When Anna didn't return home after school hours, Marianne grew anxious and began searching for her. She looked everywhere and asked around, but no one had seen Anna. When she checked with Anna's teacher and learned that Anna hadn't been to school that day, panic set in. Marianne rushed to the police station to report her daughter missing. The police launched an extensive search, scouring the area, but found no trace of Anna. Just as they hit a dead end, a woman came to the station to turn herself in. She confessed, "I sneaked out because my fiancé caused a terrible incident. He killed Anna. I wasn't home yesterday. My fiancé met Anna downstairs. Since we're neighbors, they knew each other. He invited Anna to our house to play with the cat." Anna, being a trusting child, agreed without suspicion. But after she went inside, she never came out. My fiancé later told me he strangled Anna to death with a pair of stockings, then put her body in a cardboard box and buried it by the river near his parents' house. Following the woman's statement, the police went with her to her fiancé's house, only to find it empty except for a note he'd left for her. "Honey, I'm waiting for you at the nearby bar. I want to talk things over clearly. You must come." Realizing the killer hadn't fled, the police hurried to the bar, arrested the man, and brought him in for questioning. They also recovered Anna's body by the river, bound with rope and stuffed in a box, just as the woman had described. Through initial investigations, the police identified the man as Klaus Grabowski, a 35-year-old butcher who lived next door to Marianne. There had been no prior conflicts between them, leaving everyone baffled as to why he would commit such a vicious act against a child. Klaus Grabowski was an odd, reclusive man and, crucially, a convicted sex offender with a history of targeting young girls. In 1973, at age 28, he had attacked a 6-year-old girl. Luckily, her loud screams drew attention, and he fled in panic, allowing her to escape. He was charged with attempted murder, but received a suspended sentence, avoiding prison. One would think he'd learn his lesson, but just 2 years later, he struck again. This time, he was caught in the act of assaulting 2 young girls. Everyone assumed he'd face severe punishment, but he claimed mental illness, arguing he'd committed the crimes during a psychotic episode. He was sent to a psychiatric hospital for treatment. While his condition appeared to improve, he remained a dangerous individual. Releasing him risked further crimes, yet indefinite confinement wasn't a viable option either. After careful consideration, authorities opted for chemical castration, a procedure involving estrogen injections to reduce testosterone and suppress sexual desire. At the time, Germany believed chemical castration could address sex offenders like Klaus. He was given 2 choices: accept the procedure and gain freedom, or refuse and remain in the psychiatric hospital. Without hesitation, He chose castration. Initially, it worked. He lost his sexual urges and lived quietly for 2 years. But his true nature couldn't be suppressed. Unable to cope with loneliness, he consulted a urologist and learned that chemical castration could be reversed. He went to court, claiming he'd reformed, had a girlfriend, and was preparing to marry. He argued that the castration had caused side effects and requested hormone treatment to reverse it. Without thorough investigation, the court approved his request. In March 1980, he visited a urologist, concealing his criminal past by claiming he'd been castrated due to a chemical accident and had since turned his life around. The doctor, pitying the young man's plight, agreed to help. After several treatments, by April 25th, Klaus's hormone levels returned to normal, meaning the dangerous predator was back. Sure enough, just 10 days later, on May 5th, he set his sights on Anna. Wandering alone after failing to find her friends, Anna was lured to Klaus's house, where he tortured her for hours before brutally killing her. For Marianne, losing her daughter was an unimaginable blow. She couldn't accept the cruel reality and didn't even dare look at Anna's face one last time. She blamed herself. Anna was her last child, the one she'd vowed to protect, and yet this tragedy had occurred. Locking herself in her room, Marianne was consumed by regret. Regret for arguing with Anna, for working at the bar, for not personally taking her to school. But regret was futile. Calming herself, she realized the only thing she could do for Anna now was ensure her killer faced just punishment. After 10 agonizing months, Klaus's trial finally began in March 1981 at the local court in Lübeck. When questioned by police, Klaus claimed, "I didn't mean to do anything to Anna, but she tried to blackmail me, saying if I didn't give her money, she'd tell her mom I'd molested her. I have a record. I couldn't risk going back to prison. In a panic, I accidentally strangled her." The police didn't buy his story. Klaus was a seasoned criminal. Could a 7-year-old really extort him? He didn't deny killing Anna and recounted the act with chilling detail, showing his familiarity with interrogations. After all, in his previous cases, despite clear evidence, he'd evaded serious punishment by exploiting mental health claims. People feared history might repeat itself. Would he escape justice again? His defense lawyer argued that Klaus's actions stemmed from a hormonal imbalance caused by the voluntary chemical castration years earlier, framing it as a side effect of the procedure. This sparked fierce debate. People began questioning whether Germany's use of chemical castration for sex offenders was effective. At the time, many offenders accepted the procedure for freedom, but there was no oversight afterward. If they secretly sought private doctors or drugs to reverse it, as Klaus did, wasn't hard to do. Marianne even sued the doctor who treated Klaus, though the doctor faced no punishment. On the second day of the trial, police revealed the crime scene where Anna's body was found, exposing Klaus's brutality to all. On March 6th, the third day, Marianne arrived early. As Klaus was escorted to the defendant's seat, she entered, wearing a long coat. Approaching within 3 meters of him, she swiftly drew a .22 caliber revolver from her coat and fired 8 shots at him without hesitation. The attack was so sudden that court staff couldn't intervene. After firing, Marianne tossed the gun aside, raised her hands, and surrendered, saying, "I meant to shoot him in the face, but I only hit his back." A voice rang out, "She did it. She really did it." It was Anna's father, Marianne's ex-boyfriend. 7 of the 8 bullets struck Klaus, and a doctor pronounced him dead on the spot. The courtroom erupted in shock. Someone had been shot dead during a trial, an unprecedented event. The incident sent shockwaves through Germany. Overnight, Marianne's name dominated headlines and news broadcasts. Dubbed the vengeful mother, her story spread worldwide. Many supported and empathized with her act of retribution. Parents of young children said they'd do the same in her shoes. She's just a grieving mother avenging her daughter. She did nothing wrong. She's innocent. People sent flowers, letters, and even raised 100,000 Deutschmarks for her. Yet others condemned her as a cold-blooded killer who defied the law. Marianne's trial became a national and global focal point, with media and news outlets buzzing with debate. Though public sentiment largely favored her, a stark fact remained. Klaus, however evil, hadn't been convicted at the time of his death. Legally, he was still innocent. Even if found guilty, his punishment should have come from the law, not a vigilante's gun. If everyone took justice into their own hands, society would descend into chaos. Thus, despite widespread support, Marianne's actions couldn't be excused. They violated legal order, and the consequences were severe. Her trial began on March 2nd, 1983. Given its fame and unique nature, it was no simple affair. Crowds flocked to support her and follow the proceedings, forcing the court to move to a larger hall seating 200. Most attendees backed Marianne, hoping for leniency. Some even sent threatening letters to the court, warning that if she were convicted, the judge and prosecutors would be in danger. Investigations revealed Marianne had bought the gun after Anna's death and practiced shooting in the bar's basement. Her ex-boyfriend's exclamation, "She did it," suggested premeditation. If true, this was grave. Premeditated murder could mean life in prison. Prosecutors argued that her speed and accuracy in drawing and firing indicated extensive practice, an expertly executed killing. At the trial, Marianne defended herself. "I bought the gun for self-defense, fearing criminals like Klaus, not to kill him. I never practiced shooting. After my daughter's death, I was a wreck, hallucinating distraught. I heard Klaus would lie in court, claiming Anna extorted him. I lost control. I acted impulsively, like in a dream. While in custody awaiting trial, she'd attempted suicide 5 times. Doctors and psychologists confirmed she suffered severe psychological trauma. After 25 tense days, the verdict came. The judge ruled that while Marianne committed a crime, she wasn't a societal threat. Her psyche was deeply scarred by Anna's death, and in a state of extreme distress, she'd fired unconsciously. Premeditated murder didn't hold. She was convicted of manslaughter and illegal firearm possession, sentenced to 6 years in prison. The ruling sparked yet more debate. Some called it too lenient, others too harsh. A survey later showed 28% of Germans found it fair, 27% thought it too heavy, 25% too light, and 20% had no opinion. Marianne sold her story to a German magazine for 250,000 Deutschmarks, using the money for legal fees. In June 1985, after 3 years, she was pardoned and released early. She soon married a teacher and moved to Nigeria, but the marriage ended in divorce in 1990. Seeking peace, she relocated to Sicily. Later diagnosed with pancreatic cancer, she returned to Germany for better treatment. Knowing her time was short, she hired a journalist to document her final days. In a 1995 talk show, she admitted she'd planned the shooting after learning Klaus would slander Anna in court. She acted to protect her daughter's honor, reinforcing early police suspicions. By then, though, no one pursued the truth further. On September 17, 1996, Marianne died of pancreatic cancer in a Lübeck hospital at age 46, buried beside Anna. Over 40 years later, her case remains one of Germany's most sensational since 1945, a landmark in legal history. Marianne's life and death, steeped in tragedy, leave much to ponder. A mother's loss of her child is an indescribable pain. Her actions, born of sacred maternal love, broke the law. Can we fully condemn a grieving, desperate mother? Some hail her as a hero who stood against evil for her daughter's justice, empathizing with her anguish and arguing any mother might do the same. Others denounce her, insisting no one can take a life, regardless of motive. Klaus deserved legal punishment, not personal vengeance. Her act, rooted in boundless love, raises questions about revenge's limits, the role of law and justice. Marianne's story isn't just about a mother's vengeance. It exposes flaws in the justice system, lax handling of sex offenders, like Klaus's release post-castration and lack of oversight, led to Anna's death and Marianne's spiral into retribution. It teaches us the need for a robust legal system to deter crime and uphold justice, the importance of supporting victims to heal, and the value of restraint, trusting the law over vigilante action. Violence solves nothing, it only breeds more pain and hatred. That's where our story ends today. See you in the next one. Goodbye.